welcome to the Sacred Femme Alchemy podcast, a podcast to help you on your sacred feminine journey towards self-love and healing. I'm your host, Lisa Mae Francisco, a sacred feminine guide and mentor. In the podcast, we'll dive deep on how to heal your core wounds, reclaim your feminine power, and liberate your truth so you can be your wild, authentic self. Thanks so much for listening. I'm super excited that you're here. I'm so excited to kick off season 3. And I did not want to jump into season 3 when I came back from my Tantra Yoga training from Greece. It was very, very funny because I think on my last episode, I talked about how everyone was telling me how life-changing it was going to be. And I was very, very dubious, to be honest, because I felt like people are just projecting these big, big expectations on me. And in actuality, that is exactly what happened. And so there was just this state that I felt like I had to honor of, wow, I just had this amazing transformational experience and I don't know how to integrate it because the other 9 sisters and I, we were in this very, very potent container for a month. And it felt like we were in a priestess temple, a monastery of this very, very strict schedule of waking up really early, focusing on our different yoga practices, learning about how to work with our life force through pranayama techniques, and connecting and communing with the divine through meditation and coming back to our true nature. And obviously, we're also learning different asanas of how do we explain it and communicate it when we do teach Tantra Yoga. But I think the most humbling thing for me was just realizing that I had a very different perspective of what it was going to be like. And so this episode is just going to be a download of my experience through that time during that Tantra training and debunking my own beliefs about what Tantra is and my perspective on what it actually means to me. And so, like I mentioned, I just was completely floored. My expectations of getting into that yoga training was, oh, amazing. Well, first of all, I'm going to start off with the reason why I wanted to do Tantra Yoga. And mind you, I had never taken a class before. I don't know about you, but I find that it's very easy to find vinyasa, other types of yoga practices. I mean, I have my own practice. Before doing this Tantra Yoga training, I was doing Kundalini. And Kundalini was the type of yoga that I really gravitated to. And I didn't find too many people that were doing Tantra Yoga. And so when I found this program online, I loved what it mentioned. I love that it was all women. First of all, I love that it was focused on having women come together in this container, expressing or just having opportunities to have your creative expression with each other and also awaken that divine inner Shakti. I feel like for me in the last couple of years, working with Shakti, which is the divine and feminine form, has been calling to me. And I'll share in the next episode about my whole spiritual journey. But for this one, I just really want to focus on my experience with the Tantra Yoga training and how impactful that was. And so that was what was really calling to me and activated to be true was what does it look like to awaken my divine Shakti in this month-long portal of learning different asanas to balance the lunar, the feminine side, and also the masculine side, which is the solar side, the right side of our body. And I've always been thinking about how do we find and achieve balance. And it's so funny because I had an astrology reading back in, I want to say 2015, a Vedic astrology reading. And in that reading, in that type of astrology, I'm known to be double Gemini. So my sun and my ascendant, they are, in Gemini. And I remember the teacher specifically telling me that my purpose is to unify the dualities, unify the polarities, and you have the ability to see both sides. And so it's that image of the twins, right? And that always stuck with me. And I would find it reflective in my life every so often. And when I started diving into self love and that work and really diving into the divine feminine work, it really came to me that there was just so much emphasis how to be soft because I see it. There's this backlash against bro hustle culture of women almost being resentful that they have to hustle and they've lost themselves and they feel burnt out. And now they're trying to find their way of balance towards what is it like to be the feminine. And now you have women that are just like, I don't want to do anything. I want to have the man lead. Da, 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 da. I want a super masculine man so I can be my super feminine. And to me, what I see is that we need to find inner balance. Sure, there's a way of cultivating that inner feminine because you felt like you have been operating so much in your masculine, especially if you're a business owner. And I'll share about that in another episode of how I was totally operating in my masculine. And I ended up feeling just so burnt out. And I felt like a burnt out mother. And I started to resent the relationships in my life where I felt like I had to take care of others. And so when I find that I'm resentful or burnt out, I'm looking for that vertical integration of how do I anchor and stay aligned with me. And so that was what was really calling me to this specific Tantra Yoga training was the fact that it was traditional Hatha, but it was in the science of Tantra. And I wanted to learn how do I balance those masculine and feminine sides with me and how do I teach it to others? Because I saw a gap. I saw a gap of women just only wanting to be in their feminine, but negating and almost resenting and hating their inner masculine. And to me, I am all about you, whatever you want, you need to do it first within yourself. Because if you try to expect it from external sources, you're always going to be dependent and contingent on that thing outside of you, which disempowers you. And so, how do you find that equal balance within? Everything that you want is within. And so I even talk about it in self-love. In order to find a partner, you have to love yourself the way that you would want another to love you. That is the only way that you're going to manifest the type of partnership and relationship and healthy relationship that you want because you have to be healthy yourself. And so I saw that gap. And for me, it's all about that inner union of how do I work with my masculine that creates that structure for myself in order for my feminine to be in her flow. How do I work with those two energies? Because each of us have that, right? And I think, this is my opinion, I think it's so wrong to only think of another human being as one dimensional, expecting if you have a male partner, you don't have to necessarily be like a cisgender, but if you have those certain energies, only expecting that person to be a certain way, that they have to be boxed, that they can't be in their feminine. And it's so funny because we always talk about the wounded masculine and how the masculine has a difficult relationship with his mother and he needs to get in touch with his feelings more. But then women are expecting men to be super masculine and not even harbor any type of emotions, but that is the thing that we're telling them that they need in order to heal. Or you have people that are super traditionalists and saying, no, 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 like they shouldn't be balanced. And that's the thing. We, like, at the end of the day, we are just energy. We have both of those sides within us. And that's what we were doing, this potent container of just learning about that and also learning about the chakras in our body, in our system. And the lunar side, which is the left side, it is our receptive side, it is our intuitive side, it is our side that's in flow. And the masculine side is the right side, it's the solar side, it's the sun, it's the opposite, the lunar of the moon. And what's beautiful is that the moon only shines because the sun is just reflecting on it. And so, when I think about or let me describe what the masculine side. The masculine is all about like action, it's penetration, it's outward facing, it's being able to give. It is taking the necessary steps to do what you need to do. It's out there and creating that grounded, actionable steps to take that vision from the feminine, from that lunar side into fruition, into this world. And so what I really learned about Tantra was the balance of both and learning to connect with nature and the elements and being able to see the divine in everything. And what really, really drew me to Tantra in the first place wasn't all of the neo, which I now know is just neo Tantra. So I think there's a lot of information of people saying connect to your pleasure, connect to your sexuality, and rightfully so. There is a place for that, right? I think the important thing to realize, what I learned in my education, was that Tantra encompasses everything. And when I was in that yoga training, there are two different paths, right-handed and left-handed. Right-handed is very traditional. It's also known as white tantra, and left-handed path. You eat meat. You have sexual kriyas, which are just actions that you do. And so that incorporates more of that, and that is known as red tantra. And so we were practicing the right-handed tantra, and we were purifying our energetic, subtle bodies to receive Kundalini awakening. And Kundalini is the feminine force, the creative force. That's science. And it was so funny. I thought, like, oh, are we going to have some like sexual kriyas that we're going to do to bring that energy up, and do pranayama techniques where we can sublimate our sexual energy and bring it up? Because sex energy, when you actually come an orgasm, is for males, it's when the life force leaves your body. You notice how a male, after he comes, he's so tired. That's because the life force is drained out of him. And so that's why you have a lot of tantric practices where you have people learning to circulate that sexual energy within themselves so they can raise the downward flowing energy up to the higher chakras, their heart, their throat, their third eye, their crown, all the way up there. And there are actually different pranayama techniques that you can do to sublimate that and move the energy up. And so that was just like, honestly, that was a small portion of what we were doing. And it's so interesting because if you actually look up Tantra Yoga, a lot of the times you will find like partner yoga. And we didn't have any partners. Like, it was literally yourself. And so it was a solo practice of how do you balance the inner masculine and inner feminine side within yourself in traditional hatha through the tantric science. And so the way I describe tantra to people is that you're in these poses. It's literally like a class is 5 or 6 asanas, and you are creating time to reflect on, how did that asana connect me to this chakra? How do I feel? And so there are certain asanas that you can do where you feel fire. So you feel it in your Manipura chakra, in your solar plexus chakra, or if you want to feel grounded, into your Muladhara chakra. And so there's a sequence of connecting to earth. Maybe you want to build fire, balancing your lunar and solar sides, bringing that energy down, working with your Agna chakra, the third eye. And then also, how do you connect to your crown? So you're doing a lot of headstands or inversions. And so really it's allowing you to connect to the subtle bodies, your energetic subtle body. And what I found so potent was that this was the first time my yoga practice was a meditative practice, right? When I usually do Kundalini, I feel the energy shift immediately. I feel like I'm vibrating. My auric field is, went to a chiropractor or something, and it's spiritually aligned and it's different, and I love it, and it's dynamic, and you're doing a lot of breathing and mudras and like mantras, and it's so different and it's great. But with Tantra, it allows me to slow down and connect with my mind. And so I remember this one class that we did, it was all about activating our Manipura chakra, which is our fire, right? So how do you work with that element of fire in your body and create heat and use that as a force and momentum and energy to alchemize your body so it can ascend to the higher chakras, so that you can actually ascend it to your heart chakra? And I hated the class. We were doing a lot of standing positions. We were holding it for a long time. I mean, you're holding it for 30 seconds to a minute, sometimes 2 minutes. And that might not seem long, but when you're in a pose and when you're in an asana, that is extremely difficult. And you're like trying to balance and you're just looking around and going, what the fuck? Like you get angry. And sometimes a lot of us actually got really upset with the teacher for making us do this thing. And we didn't like it. And we wanted something soft. And that's the thing about how this works, is just how fierce it can be, knowing that you have to do these things that are hard, that is necessary for you. And so it really actually taught me grit, right? That if I can balance my mind, then I can balance my breath. And if my breath is balanced, then my mind is balanced, right? I'm not looking and wavering to be in the past or be in the future. It is present. It is like the drishti is just your point of what you're looking at. It's like a focal point. And so you would have your external drishti of what you were physically looking at, but then you would close your eyes and that would be your internal drishti of connecting to the energetic subtle body of how is this energy moving to that specific chakra that we are trying to move it to. What are you feeling? Are you here in this moment? Are you present in this moment? And so it was a completely active meditation to check in with where I was. And I had never had that before, because a lot of the times I find that yoga to me in the West is just very much a physical exercise and practice. You know, you go to yoga to sort of disassociate from work or everyday life, and it's your time to just get in your body, have someone lead you, and kind of just check the fuck out. I mean, that's just the way that my practice was with it. And I think when I really started diving into Kundalini more, what I loved about it was the spiritual practice. And I resonate more towards yoga instructors who are very spiritual, that are embodied, that practice the philosophy, that live it on a day-to-day basis, versus someone who's just getting to these asanas. It is literally a sacred practice for me. And we were taught that many yogis back in the day, they would practice asanas sometimes for months before they even did anything else, right? They would practice on one asana. And so that just really shows you that the way that it's being taught now is just more of diluted package in a way. That's how I would describe it. And so you really think about the sanctity of like, why are we doing these things? Especially when you think about traditional hatha of like, why am I doing this pose? Why do I want to balance my lunar and my like my solar side? What's the importance here? Or even when you do Surya Namaskar, which are sun salutations, and how can you use your body as a way to express gratitude and reverence to the sun in these asanas? And so that was just really potent for me of, here I am, this person that just wanted to learn asanas and just become a Tantra yoga instructor. And in fact, I'm going very, very slow with it. And Kundalini and Tantra yoga are very, very different. And I didn't have a strong practice in hatha. And so that is what I'm currently doing right now, is like, how do I practice the physical asana, right? So it's like different stages of getting into the physical asana, and then you get into the tantra part and that aspect of it where you're really working with the energy and directing it to certain chakras and creating this sequence of what is your theme. And so it's just like layers upon layers upon layers. And it's, whoa, you can just go so deep with it. And the beautiful part is that when you're in it, you can also invoke these different deities. In our training, we learned about the Mahavidyas, which are basically the goddesses. So it's Shakti in different goddess forms. And so each one of them, we can call upon the different attributes and qualities that they have. So that's a way of prayer, of practice. And it was very interesting because in the whole time that I was just there and connecting and realizing resistance to certain things. And it was funny because I remember telling my teacher the first time I had a one-on-one with her, I told her, I don't think I'm going to be teaching Tantra Yoga. I don't like it. And it was just right after the fire class. And I just did not like it. I thought it was so slow. It's like the first time you actually practice meditation with someone. And I remember when I first started meditating, when I first got sober about 13 years ago, I just remember thinking, what am I supposed to do? Just sit here with my thoughts. And then I developed different types of meditation where it was group meditation, guided meditation, silent meditation, tension meditation, visualization, like all these different things that you can do. And then on this training, I realized she called it concentration techniques, that they weren't actually meditation. And meditation is the opportunity for you to be that witness consciousness, to embody that witness consciousness. And I remember reading this book a long time ago, and they talked about how the whole purpose of meditation was to not attach to your thoughts. So you can strengthen that muscle of not attaching to your thoughts. And that essentially is your true divine nature. Your true divine nature is not the thoughts that you have or any of the things that you identify with. And so it was so interesting because I would do certain meditations in women's circles. And to me, now when I look back, that's actually just intention setting, because true meditation is when sure, there are certain steps to actually have a meditation practice, but it's basically naturally learning to be in the present moment and not having your mind be wandering anywhere else. And now the mind is always going to have thoughts, right? But can you train yourself to be the witness and not attach to it, not get stuck, and allow yourself to be present? And so maybe you want to direct your energy to your heart. Maybe you want to direct your energy to your third eye, right? As soon as you begin. And then you focus on the pauses in between your breath, right? And if a thought comes, then you go back to the pauses. And so it's always about retraining your mind to go back to that remembrance, to not be identified with your thought. And it's interesting because Eckhart Tolle in Power of Now, he calls it the pain body, right? Those thoughts, those what's in your mind, all of that stuff. Like you can get so caught up in it, but what if you don't identify with it? And that's when your true divinity is able to come up out of that experience. And so I remember we were doing this practice called Jataka, where you focus your drishti, your focal point, on a flame. And you look at the flame and you don't blink your eyes until like you literally cannot, and it burns, it hurts. And so the purpose of that is to train your concentration. A lot of the times we are so focused on multitasking. I mean, I admit it, I'm such a multitasker, and I would constantly pride myself in that I'm able to do so many things at once and blah, 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 blah. But do any of those really have my attention? When you give full attention to something, you are completely present with something. And there's so much beauty and divinity in that within itself, of not wanting to be anywhere else but in this present moment. And so when we were doing this Jataka practice, that was like afterwards, that was probably the most deepest meditation that I had ever been in, where I truly felt like I connected to the goddess, to the divine. And I just was in that state of remembering and being in that state, right? I didn't have to remind myself too much of, oh, focus on your pauses or count your breaths, to have this unilateral thought. And so it was just so interesting and so humbling to realize, like, oh, that's what true meditation is. And then it made me think of another thought of, we kept on going in these deep, deep meditations every single day for at least 30 minutes when we did our asana practice and pranayama techniques. And our teacher would guide us into asking the question, who am I? Like when you are asking the question, who am I? What? You start to go deep and you start to not identify with who you thought you were. And I will say, being there a month long, it actually felt like a shroom trip because we were studying different ways of thinking and believing. Granted, it was, basically it was a training on how to be a yogini. It was yoga teacher training, but it was really training of how to be a yogini. And we were gifted these different practices and knowledge about how to do certain things. And it's, oh my God, are we even ready? Do I even understand the level and the depth of what was transmitted to me? Do I even know how to use it? Do I even have a container to understand? And so I'm very sure that I'm going to revisit it, and it's going to be taught at a much deeper and embodied level as the years go on and I start to develop and understand, the different layers of what Tantra truly is. And so, what I really love was that we talked a lot about the matrix. What is this false reality that we are living in? And it's interesting because when we were there and purifying our body with all of these different, we were basically purifying our energetic body. And our teacher told us that we would be so magnetic afterwards and people would want, be so attracted to us. And so many things have transpired since then that I can't even, describe to you how or why they came to be, but they have, being led to different teachers, different communities that I was praying and asking for. And it's, literally in an instant, I'm asking for things and I'm receiving them. I'm asking that I'm receiving them. And so it's pretty wild. I truly feel like a magician of like, whoa, really co-creating with the divine goddess. And so being in that magical state of almost like Jedi, like Jedi training or like training in Kill Bill. That's what it honestly felt like. And there were many times when I wanted to resist what I was learning because my triggers of being in Catholic upbringing with a punitive God and to sublimate your sexual energies and all of these things. It just came up of having to do things perfectly. And if you didn't do it perfectly, then it's like, would the gods punish you? And asking for forgiveness if you didn't do a certain ritual right. And I'm learning to take what I like and leave the rest. I'm learning, I think, if anything, what's reignited is just my connection to the divine. And I had never, never, never explored the divine in her feminine form. It was always very much in the masculine form. And I didn't like it too much. And so I've never explored that. And so that's what I love Tantra is the fact that they honor the feminine. And that's why it's interesting because they understand the inner masculine, the inner feminine that's needed. And so if you look at the Catholic religion and how they had their Genesis story of when the world came to be, it was Adam and Eve. You had inner masculine, feminine, right? But the feminine, she wanted to bite that apple and eat it because she wanted knowledge and was like, yo, God, you're like gatekeeping something from us. And she's the one that is scorned. And it's because of Eve, this feminine form, that we're casted out and we're sinful and we need God to repent for our sins. And we need God outside of us to save us. And it's, oh my God. And if you look even at the Gospel of Mary, which always emphasizes that God is within, and that's why it was extracted from the gospel, it's this codependency on something outside of you. And I have no idea why I got on that tangent, but anyway, so that is how Catholics they share their masculine feminine type of Genesis story. And what I loved about Tantra is that Shiva is the male god and it represents the consciousness, and Shakti, the feminine form, she represents the expression of that consciousness. It's not one is hierarchical than the other, that one is greater than the other. The Hindus believe that you needed both. because without Shiva, there would be no Shakti. Without Shakti, there would be no Shiva. And that's how I love that I could really see it embodied in this Tantra Hatha practice of, wow, they're not pitted against each other, that we need both within ourselves, right? Without pure consciousness, we can't have expression of that. And so if you look outside and you see, for example, a tree trunk, right? So the form is Shiva, it's that tree trunk, but then the expression and that life force of it, the color of it, the leaves of it, that is Shakti. That is beautification manifested in this world. And that's what I love about Tantra, is that you need to balance the masculine and the feminine. And so it was just so beautiful. It's like, you even think about the rivers and the mountains, and the rivers can be in flow, but you need those mountains to create that structure so it doesn't overflow and cause destruction. And so that was just very, very beautiful. And other tantric purification practices that we did was we sat a lot. We created a yantra, which is a sacred geometric shape that you're able to invoke a deity from. And so you sit with it, you pray with it. We did a sand art of a yantra. We did ours to Lakshmi and Vishnu for abundance. And it was light. Our teacher purposely chose a light goddess, which I'm very grateful for. And we did arti, where we sang songs, and it was very jubilant. And we had yagna, which were these sacred fire ceremonies of putting offerings like rice into the fire and chanting different mantras. And then we had a specific mantra every single day, and we sat with it. And in our japa meditation, where it was an hour, and we just recited this mantra for an hour over and over and over again. And so I was like, this is Tantra? I'm like, what about all of those workshops that I see? We were all confused, and I was just so comical. I was like, wow, it has a deeper meaning. And if you think about it, I grew up Catholic, and we also did that in Catholicism, where we believe the Spirit, God, the Holy Spirit, comes down into the Eucharist, and you take it and you put it in your body, and you believe that the Holy Spirit is within you. And so there were definitely some times where I found myself resistant to some of these rituals, because I felt like it was very rigid. And so I had that moment of, oh, can I just accept and participate without judgment? And I always caught myself. And that was strengthened by doing meditation, of actually honing in and practicing on and embodying, what does it mean to be the witnesser? And I remember my teacher said, after one meditation, look for the one who is looking, right? Look for the one who is looking. And what that means is, can you be an outsider in your life? Can you not identify yourself with the things that you're saying? But can you have neutrality? Can you transcend those thoughts and beliefs? And so when I found myself judging, rather than getting caught up and carried away with the judgment and all of these things, it was just like, oh, I'm judging right now. With neutrality around it. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad. And I think a lot of the times people feel shame and guilt for the thoughts that they have, because they identify themselves with those thoughts, that I am my thought, I am my feeling. And you're not. It's just something inside of you is being triggered, that is like residual energy from a previous trauma that you need to clear out. And the most interesting throughout the whole process, it was about, how do you see the divine in everything? And as we were creating our yagna, we created this kund. So we had different bricks. Then we had to mix cow dung with soil. And I was like, oh my God, this is so gross. We were all like, ugh. But it was an experience. I just thought, okay, I'm going to do it. When am I ever going to do this again? And we were mixing it with our hands. And when one of my dear sisters, she made a joke about, oh, being smelly. And our teacher said, There's even the divine in things that smell. How can you find the divine within everything you do? And to me, that is what Tantra is. It accepts the totality of who you are. And back in the day, that there were these two paths, right? You can either be super spiritual and be austere and live in a mountain, and that was it. But other people wanted to have spirituality too, but they didn't want to leave their lives. And so that's where Tantra came in of how do you accept the totality of existence, essentially? And that's also how sex became sacred as well. And that's where a lot of people just kind of ran away with it of, oh, wow, sex is deemed spiritual. So let me just focus on that. And that's like the only thing that I want to ascribe Tantra to is sex. But it's so much more than that. And it's so interesting we were heavily revering the different elements, in each of the chakras, they have different elements. And, you think about connecting to ether, the cosmos, which is space, the stars, the planets. How do you bring that cosmic energy grounded down into the earth? What does it mean to connect to that earth element, to be grounded, to be stable, to be rooted, right? There's a lot of people I find that even though they're incarnated in this body, they choose to not really be in reality. But how do you balance both? Right. And that is the work of the magician, of that archetype of how do you play in the realms of the cosmos and bring it on this material plane? How do you assert yourself to become that bridge? How do you alchemize? And how do you work with fire? What does that look like? What is that courage to do something, that inner fire? How do you see it in your life play out? Thinking about water, the sensuality, the flow of things, that fluidity of things, the nourishment of it, and air, like working with smoke, and what does that look like? And so it's so interesting to come back and see and feel the divine in everything. And one of the things that I noticed about people who practice was just how present everybody was. Whomever I spoke to, I just felt like they were just all very, very, very present. And I wanted to know, what is their secret? I don't understand. And when I think about it now, I think of, oh my God, that is it. They're choosing to be in this present moment because they believe that every single moment is divine, that it is sacred, and that they're not in their thoughts. Sure, some people may be, but it's like they know how to come back to what's true, right? When you think about these different realities of the past, that's not true because it already happened. When you think about the future, that's not true either because it's just a projected reality. The only thing that's truth is right now, in this moment, in whatever it is in front of you. And I want you to catch yourself of how to work with the mind, how to play with the mind, and know when you start to identify yourself with those thoughts that are from the past or in the future. And how often are you actually in the present moment when you're in conversation with someone? And that's what Tantra means to me, is just being embodied, being able to connect and commune with the divine in everything that you do and making it sacred. And to me, that's what it means to walk this path of the sacred feminine, right? It's about, sure, I identified as being feminine, but it is the balance of your inner masculine, your inner feminine. It's knowing that you have both to you, and how can you tend to both? How can you elicit both? That will actually invoke your queen archetype, having the strength, but also the softness, being fierce, but also being gentle. Just how roses have the soft petals, the fragrance, the bloom, and the color, the vibrant color, but they also have thorns, right? It's knowing how to utilize both within yourself and honoring that and being a manifestation of what you see, that expression, that creative, unbridled, and inhibited expression of yourself out in that world, and creating this container for yourself to embody that. That's what that means. That is what the sacred feminine means to me. And so I encourage you to start to think How can I be more present in my life? How can I create my life to be more of an experience that I'm communing with the divine? That everything is a sacred experience, even when I'm washing the dishes, even when I'm making a meal, even when I'm cleaning. Because that was one of the things that we practiced was when we were cleaning our temples, we did seva, which is selfless service. And each of us had different tasks we had to do. We had to put flowers on the altars. We had to clean and mop the floor, all different things. We had to make sure that our temple was tidy. And so, how do you do it in a way that honors the divine, that honors your home, right? And if you think about it, there's just so many different ways that I can go into, but it's like looking at the divine in your body, looking at the divine in your mind, looking at the divine in your spirit. Where is that? And since coming back and being really intentional and creating more rituals in my life, I've learned that there's something so special about being here in this body and being grateful that I get to experience life on this earth. And even it's such a deeper meaning to me now of what it means to connect. And I was with my partner. We were out in Presidio Park. It's this beautiful park in San Francisco. And we were looking at the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was beautiful. I think it was 70 degrees, which is very unheard of in San Francisco. And the sun was just shining. And the birds were flying, and these white birds just looked like snow falling, and everything was just green, and the ocean was in front of us, and it was just this beautiful blue color, and there were ships and there were people, and I just felt like I saw Shakti everywhere. Right? I just saw her everywhere. The manifestation of her beauty dripping in this world. It was a fucking painting to me. And I felt the energy, and I felt the energy of the trees, and I saw the energy move in the leaves of the trees when the wind would pick up, even in the waves, and how it would reverberate into like different waves, into this like abyss. And I was just like in awe of everything. And it's like, how can you go through everyday life and not realize the sanctity of what it is that you are living in, what you are breathing in? And I'm sure some people were like, well, this is not a reality. This is fake and blah, blah, blah. This is all fake. But you are incarnated into this body. Your past life wanted you to incarnate into this realm, and you are here. So how can you be present and share your gifts with the world? And it's just to be given a pair of new glasses that allows me to see the divine in everything. I mean, one of the meditation practice we did was a walking meditation, right? Sure, some people can say it's like mindfulness and all that stuff, but we did it differently. And it was like from the Buddhist meditation where imagine your feet are kissing the earth and that you're leaving lotus flowers every single time you walk. Like, how beautiful is that? Imagining that you are kissing Mother Earth every single time you walk. And as you walk a new step, you're leaving rose petals everywhere you've been, or lotus flowers everywhere you've been. And I just thought, wow, that is what it means to truly, truly, to me, was practice this way. And even seeing my partner differently too. It's like he's not himself, but more of an expression of Shakti, this divine being that I get to love and who also loves me. And we get to share this love in a beautiful cycle and reverberate and share that energy with the rest of the world. Like, that is just so beautiful. I feel like I sound like I'm on Molly or something. It's so funny. But that is like my own tantric practice, right? And so it's just, it was just a very, very profound experience. And I'm so grateful that I was able to take this yoga training, connect to it, have a different and deeper understanding of what Tantra means to me, and explore it and understand how can I use this in a way, because it was very hard for me to think. I'm having, I'm focusing my coaching business, but a lot of it is like past thinking and thinking about our traumas and how they connect to us and how they inform our lives. And what if we just don't opt into that? What if we don't? What if it's only a small portion of who we are? And what if we use it as a way to redirect the path that we want to be on? And that was something that was very hard for me to stomach, was, wow, I forgot my true nature. I forgot my divine nature of who I was. And I remember very clearly thinking, well, if I am not my thoughts and the trauma that happened to me, well, then who am I? And the answer is, you're the divine. Like, the divine is within you. You're not any of those things. You're not any of those stories people told you, or things that you think yourself. And it created this void of, whoa. Then I get to play and explore of who I want to be, and I get to co-create with the divine and have a deeper purpose of how do I serve others. And that just became so profound, so profound. And the more that I recognize the divine in me, and that I am not my thoughts, and that I am not my mind, and not even my body, then I can recognize the divinity in every single person I meet. Because if you think about it, it's like oftentimes we dislike someone because we perceive them to do something that causes us harm. And we dislike them as a person. We dislike what they look like. We just associate everything with them. And I thought, wow, if I am not my thoughts and I am not my body, then they are not their thoughts, they are not their body, and they aren't the actions that they do. Then that means I can love everybody? And I was just so floored. I was so floored. And the more that I learned to do that within myself, the more that I learned to come back to that remembrance of who I truly am, right? That I am this divine being, that I am the goddess, that you are also the goddess, then there's no need for hate. There's no need for judgment, because we are all each other. We're all just mirrors to each other. We're all made from the same energy. And if anything, that allowed me to love other people more. And so I remember just sitting at the beach, at the Aegean Sea, just recognizing and realizing that I have been thinking that I am those things, and I am my trauma, but I am not those things, and I can change my reality. And if I can do that, then I can also love other people too. When I thought about my father especially, and our relationship isn't always perfect. It's, gotten better over the years. But I was like, wow, then he's not the things that he does. He's not his thoughts. And so when you truly understand that and get it, not just at the cognitive, the mental level, but the heart level, then your heart is open, and then you can love, right? And that is the whole purpose for me of walking this healing journey, of following this sacred feminine path, and having to walk it with others and guide others. Is it starts with an open heart. It starts with an open heart. It starts with an open mind, an ability to connect to something far greater than you, knowing that your life has more purpose than what you think it is. And if you're ready to do this work, then the world will open up for you and you will experience such a juicy, juicy life. And I don't only say that for you to like want to do this work so you can get things, right? Things, accumulate things. But it's these treasures, these hidden secrets, and these esoteric information of, wow, I get it now. And so I'm so excited to dive more into this path and share more of what I'm learning and have this shift in my business of really focusing on what does it mean to walk this sacred feminine path? What does it mean to balance and unify the polarities and find that inner union between your own masculine and feminine side, your lunar side, your solar side, and not have it be pitted one against the other? And what does it mean to you? And what does it mean to commune with the divine? What does it look like to create more rituals in your life, to be more soft-hearted and also be stern? Because that is necessary too. I don't want you to think that, oh, divine feminine is just being soft and being your pleasure and desires and that's it. It's also learning to play with other attributes, right? Like a lot of people, they work with Kali Ma, and that is the goddess that is about destruction and purification of the truth and burning and purifying the truth that is not serving you. And so doing what's necessary in order for you to be in your highest good, in service to the collective. Everything is always in service to the collective. And so I'm so excited to start off season 3 with this episode, sharing my experience with Tantra, the yoga training, the new direction, all of that stuff. And I can't wait for an opportunity to support you. And so if you love this episode, feel free to reach out to me, DM me, and I will connect with you, and I can't wait for the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you next time.